During his recent visit to Washington, French President Emmanuel Macron pushed for the United States to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. Speaking before a joint session of Congress, Macron said, quote, "We're killing our planet. Let's face it, there's no planet B." So are we killing planet Earth, or is this just more liberal mumbo-jumbo? Well, joining us is geologist Gregory Wrightstone. He's just written the book Inconvenient Facts, the science Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Okay, Mr. Wrightstone, I guess by that title, you don't agree with Al Gore or President Macron. Are we killing our planet? What have you discovered from your research?
Oh boy, it's completely 180 degrees opposite. What I've found is the science, facts, and data actually support the fact that the Earth is prospering, it's flourishing, it's greening. We're not diving into or spiraling into some climate apocalypse events due to our sins of emission, but rather the Earth's ecosystems are improving because of rising temperatures and increasing CO2. And by extension, humanity's benefiting. And that's just a huge untold story. And you'll never hear any of these benefits of increasing CO2 by the mainstream media. We just hear of gloom and doom and projections of death.
Yeah, I think Al Gore in his two movies basically showed apocalypse, shrinking shorelines, floods and cyclones and earthquakes and everything imaginable. So I think there is disagreement in the scientific community, though. First they said global warming, then global cooling. Now I think they're just saying climate change. So which is it and why?
Oh, well, you lost the last one. It was climate disruption now. You got to get it right, Gary. You got to get it right. So it's climate disruption. But no, I like to use, I live in the real world. And what I've done is I compare and contrast a lot of the things your viewers have heard about, increasing desertification, increasing fires, famine, intense heat waves, those things. We're being told that that these are going to increase, and these are based on predictions based on climate models that actually can't model climate very well. We see that the climate models overpredict warming by 2.5 to 3 times too much. We see, if we look actually in the real world, my book, the last half of the book, I look at the climate apocalypse events, and we see what's actually happening based on science, facts, and data. Many of these are actually declining. And I like to use forest fires as a great example. Everybody thinks that forest fires are increasing. Before I got into this, I did. I thought forest fires were increasing. Who wouldn't, after all we hear in the media to hear about this? But actually the experts on forest fires, people at the Canadian Fire Service, in the United States, the National Interagency Fire Service, these people tell us that forest fires have been in a long-term decline, and importantly, this is the big thing, the experts tell us that they're declining because of increased soil moisture that's due to rising temperatures and increasing CO2. What they've done is look at fires for the last 100+ years over the Northern Hemisphere and see a significant decline in those.
How concerned should we be about rising sea levels?
Well, sea level recently started rising about the year 1800, as we were coming out of what was called the Little Ice Age, the horrific Little Ice Age, I might add. Half the population of Iceland perished. The River Thames froze on a yearly basis, and the last time that happened was 1812. So we've been slowly coming out of this really, really cold period. Some people have called it the long, slow thaw. And thankfully, thank God, we're warming. People don't have to worry during the warming periods how they're going to feed their family tomorrow, because there's plenty of food. But then when it gets cold, in each case we see collapse of civilizations, famine, pestilence, mass depopulation. So warm is good, cold is bad historically.
Ice and snow melt in the North and South poles. Now, some people say we're seeing a shifting of the magnetic poles. You're a geologist. What do you think?
Yeah, I can't. The shifting of the magnetic poles is fascinating. It occurs from time to time. I'm told we're due one. We've never seen one in the modern times, but it's happened so often that it's had no detrimental effect as far as we can tell. But when you talk about warming of the poles, Antarctic ice sheet, all but what's called the Antarctic Peninsula, is expanding. The ice is expanding in Antarctica. And the northern polar ice, the fact of the matter is, your listeners may not be aware, but you could melt the entire northern polar ice sheet and it would scarcely affect sea level. And the reason for that, you're going to go, whoa, what are you talking about, Greg? But recall that the northern polar ice is floating on water. All right, Antarctica is not, it's linked to so we're floating on water. Imagine you could do that experiment at home with some ice cubes in a glass. You can melt the ice and the water level doesn't.
Well, we're running out of time, but before you go, I've got to ask you about the Paris Climate Accord. That agreement, should we stay in or should we get out?
Donald Trump was very, very right in getting us out of there. It's kudos to him. Kudos to Scott Pruitt, who needs to have a finding that CO2 is not actually a pollutant and get rid of that.
Gregory Wrightstone, geologist and author of the new book, Inconvenient Facts, The Science Al Gore Doesn't Want You to Know. Thanks for your insights.
Thank you, Gary.